Hello and welcome to the aForm Show, the premier podcast for all things architecture and design across the MENA region. Welcome to your tribe. Hello and welcome to the show, everyone. Today, we are joined by Ujjwal Goel, Managing Director of Teraciel Group, a fast-growing multidisciplinary company headquartered in Dubai. Under his leadership, Teraciel has evolved into a fully integrated group delivering real estate, interiors, manufacturing, and bespoke solutions across multiple global markets. Ujjwal's vision and entrepreneurial drive continue to position Teraciel as a strong player in the region's built environment. So without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome to the show, Ujjwal. How are you?
Very well. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I know we spoke briefly off air, so you kind of know who you're talking to at the moment. For the designer who, for some reason, has not heard of the Teraciel Group, could you tell us what's under the hood?
Sure. So I think, as you mentioned in your introduction, we're a Dubai-based multidisciplinary group. We're headquartered in Dubai, working in India and Africa as well. We have 3 different branches in terms of the businesses that we operate in, right from contracting, which is luxury residential contracting in the Middle East and in India, to infrastructure contracting in Africa, and a more recently started boutique real estate development company in Dubai, where we're building some of the most luxurious villas that the city has to see.
Nice. I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, that happens to be a sector which is close to my heart, as our listeners probably know. So I think a very quick follow-up would be, what are you seeing in that sector at the moment? When you have clients coming in who have possibly bought a plot in Jumeirah Bay, Nile Islands, wherever it may be, and they're coming to you and saying, Ujjwal, we just bought this plot, we want the next best thing. What are you thinking?
See, I think a couple of things. The next best thing is, clients coming to this city today. I mean, the whole world's moving to Dubai and they're coming with great exposure, great new ideas. And I think the city itself is so inspiring that every new hotel that comes up, every new property that comes out, people are really pushing the boundaries. The Marsa Al Arab that opened up a couple of months ago, I think really a new benchmark when it comes to interior design and architecture. So people are coming with some great ideas, some great exposure. And then, as you said, they want the next best thing. So it's really pushing boundaries for us as designers, architects, developers. What we're very cognizant of is that we're building certain assets that are going to be delivered 2 years, 3 years down the line. So when we start developing, we have to kind of offer something which is really out of the ordinary.
Right.
Whilst also, we're cognizant that these are homes. We don't want to go too out of bounds, but in terms of materiality, in terms of detailing, we're always exploring new materials, new ideas. And the one thing that is kind of unique to us is, as a design and build firm, we're able to really ensure the ideas that we put out there, we have the ability to execute them and execute them with the right quality that is required for these assets. So yeah, I mean, as you said, that everybody coming in now is they want to create Dubai as their permanent home. And when it's a permanent home that they expect to be in for the next 30, 40 years, they really are expecting a certain level of quality, a certain level of durability. So we're trying to kind of find that balance between pushing those boundaries in terms of design, whilst ensuring that there's capability to execute it and ensuring that when we do execute it, it stands the test of time as well.
Right. I think it's interesting to sort of get your opinion on this. This is sort of a debate I've heard that has been happening off late, which is luxury as a term, right? Maybe a decade or so back was kind of Calcutta white with, 24 karat gold plated, whatever, etc. Luxury today clearly is not that. It's definitely evolved and changed and so on. I find it very hard as a designer when I get a client that says, I want it to be really luxurious. Today, it is very hard to pin that on anything specific. So when it comes to sort of the work that you guys do, are you seeing a sort of shift in what clients are asking for in terms of finishes or in terms of types of spaces that they want in their homes, etc.?
No, I think, firstly, it's very refreshing, when people talk about the business and they talk about marble and all. I love that who I'm speaking to has complete understanding of that. But yeah, obviously materials play a big role. But as one thing that I always say in terms of luxury for me, it's a lot about the feeling that a space provides when you enter it. And that is obviously a combination of factors. First and foremost, I think uniqueness, a little bit of personalization and individuality is really, really critical. If you've seen something before and that's being repeated across different properties, I think it kind of loses that sense of luxury, it loses that sense of personality. Yeah. So I think ensuring that each project is kind of has its own identity, that's something really important. The other aspect is detailing and workmanship. And again, hard finishes, when it's the ability to install marble and integrate different materials such as wood, metal, glass. I think having good craftsmanship behind that is essential to deliver luxury. We really believe that luxury is obviously in the details. Something that I always say to my team is, I think in terms of quality, most companies in the market today who are catering to the clientele that we do, I think 95% quality standards most companies would do. We're only kind of pushing for the last 5%. And that's where the real magic happens, because it's when that flawless execution takes place and when perfection is achieved. And that is when somebody walks into a property and they get that feeling that this is something special. And that for me is true luxury. So the ability to kind of get somebody to get that feeling when somebody walks into a space is what is really, really important. And I think by ensuring that a place has its own identity, by ensuring that the craftsmanship behind that is perfect, and by ensuring that you're pushing the boundaries for quality to kind of achieve the last 5%. I think if you're able to kind of hit these three parameters, you'll be able to achieve true luxury.
I'm a big fan of that last 5%, to be honest. And I'm sure many contractors I work with hate me for that because typically I'm the guy that kind of has the never-ending snag list, which just goes on and on and on and on and on. But that's refreshing. I think what is interesting for Teraciel Group as a whole, like you mentioned, because you are design and build, you do have a very close, almost like monitoring the pulse of the project right from day one, because obviously whatever you design and spec, at some point you're also subconsciously doing a BOQ and subconsciously thinking how that's going to be built and, do we need scaffolding, et cetera, et cetera. So it is kind of very comprehensive from that sense. I want to touch base a little bit on LSI. And if you can probably tell our listeners, who I would think a lot of you guys are interior designers, what is LSI and what are you guys doing there?
So LSI is our design and build firm, part of the group. Our vision for LSI is quite simple. It's to design and build the best homes in the world. And in that, again, our approach to that is, when it comes to our design philosophies, is very similar to what I spoke about earlier, where we want to create unique assets for a client. We want to design things which are obviously pushing design boundaries, but at the same time ensuring that they don't come off as design projects per se. They're homes that we're building. So they need to feel like a home. They need to be practical. Families need to come together well in that. So the relationships between people, how the house functions along with the people that live with it. So ensuring that all of those functions come together well. And at LSI, I think we're currently, something that I'm really proud of is executing some of the largest projects or some of the most advanced projects that we would see in the industry in most of the high-end communities, whether it is Emirates Hills. We're doing about 4 or 5 villas ranging from 30,000 square feet to 60,000 square feet there. We're doing about, again, 2 massive villas in Barari, which would come to the market as, I think, some of the most expensive villas in Barari. Again, 130,000 or 145,000 square feet villa there. In Palm, we have numerous villas that we've been doing. And what's great is that each villa is completely different from one another. It's not a mass market kind of product. It's different materials, different designers. So, sorry, one thing which I didn't clarify was, as a design and build company, we obviously do projects that we do design and execute. But alongside with that, we work with some of the leading interior designers in the country as well. So either we collaborate with them or we contract for them. So we have quite a varied portfolio where there's obviously certain design aesthetic and design language that our design house has. But working alongside with other companies and other leading interior designers also gives us exposure to newer materials and newer ways of thinking and newer clientele that comes from different places in the world. So that varied portfolio really, really helps us to kind of have a much larger horizon, I think, as compared to other companies in the market. And one thing which we say is we're boutique in a certain sense, but we also have a certain history, the group's 40 years old, so we've been in the business for a really long time. So we have a certain level of craftsmanship, certain level of skill set that we've developed within the industry. So whilst being boutique, we are niche in the sense that we are catering to the upper end of the market. So we do get to kind of do large projects, but maybe not necessarily 100 projects simultaneously. The market's grown really. I think in the last year, we've seen great demand of ultra luxury homes. So we're doing about 25 big villas in Dubai currently. So it's a growing operation, but something that we are trying to balance in terms of with scale. We're trying to also balance that we don't lose our attention to detail that is required to deliver these luxury homes.
Yeah. No, level to detail, I think, is really what makes or breaks it, right? Because again, not to get too technical, I've seen some brilliant details that were drawn and it all makes sense on paper. But then the minute you need to execute that, you suddenly realize I'm guilty of it all the time, right? Just not leaving like a 10 mm time gap for someone to install something when you can't really get your fingers even inside there. Happens all the time. And I'm obviously guilty of it. But it's good that you kind of have control over that, which is exciting. I want to ask then, because the constant sort of debate between design and build as a model versus, sort of the traditional route where you have a designer, then you have a contractor, et cetera, et cetera. The debate constantly is, would you be able to push design if you also have contracting under the same umbrella? The reason the debate is because obviously there would be some quote unquote logic, which the contracting side would ground you in, saying, listen, this is how it should work. And in some sense, that would impact or influence the kind of design that you do as well, in the sense that it would be very functional and it would work. But sometimes you have designers that kind of come in that really try to push the boundary, like you say. And maybe there isn't a detail. Maybe you need to figure it out, do a couple of mock-ups, they will fail, and then you kind of figure out how to make that work. So do you think there's any logic in that debate, or do you think design and build is still the way to go?
See, for me, a successful project is one that is obviously design-wise, craftsmanship-wise, hits the benchmarks that are required to be hit, but also at the same time finishes in a certain amount of time that is practical and reasonable. And third, finishes within a budget that the client is actually willing to pay.
Right.
So given these three parameters, I feel design and build works really, really well. Because someone who has to build it and design it and build it will be cognizant of all three. Having said that, I work with some great designers who are able to also be a little more practical about all of these three factors whilst designing. But as that, we're in a tough place in this industry. The standards are very, very high, and the demands are very, very high. So people are trying to push boundaries. And apart from the designers are very, very busy as well. If it's just a designer, some of these projects require a lot of time commitment exclusively when you're developing it. So whilst having other projects within their portfolio, designers may not necessarily be able to give it the required time to give timely approvals, which generally extends the project duration.
Yeah.
So having sat on both sides and doing business on both sides, I do believe like design and build works better. I think it gives a client a single point responsibility. A discussion that is had on budgets, the contractor or design and build contractor has to be accountable for that, because they're the ones who've got that information whilst they're designing. They know how to build it. So I think overall, all the stakeholders, I feel it's less risk associated to all the stakeholders when work is done in that way.
Yeah.
From my experience, we're able to execute faster. We're able to execute, I think, the design intent more as originally planned, because there is not a translation that is happening. And I feel that the client feels a lot more in control of the project through the entire journey as compared to having multiple different parties and multiple different consultants on the job. However, I think I have cracked contracting, luxury contracting, working with external designers as well.
Awesome. I'm going to ask you for the formula right after this.
So I'll dive into it a little bit. So what we've done is, working with different designers, we understand the deliverables from different designers. Each of them have their own standards, whether it's the drawings, whether it's the specifications, whether it's the schedules, they have their own versions and own standards that they deliver. What we do within our engineering department, their job is to translate all of that to our standards. So my execution team, my project management team only reads what my engineering team delivers to them.
Right.
Yeah. So that is standardized across all projects. And I think that's something which we realized is essential to scale. I said luxury villas requires a lot of attention to detail. It requires a lot of personal time. And if things are not standardized in terms of the documentation, a lot of things can get missed out. So what we've done is that we've standardized our drawing set. Each drawing has details of what needs to be delivered within drawing, what is the purpose of that drawing. Everybody from the design manager to the project manager to the project engineer to the site engineer, everybody understands that this drawing serves this purpose. All of these details are going to be there. The specs and the schedules are defined in a certain standard, so it's very easy for people to read. It also identifies and alerts people if there is any missing information. So for example, if a spec is of a tile but it doesn't have a brand with it, it'll alert us that there's a brand missing. So either an RFI can immediately be raised, because so all the teams are very well synced into it. And if they're able to understand if the team is just working on our formats and it's just repetitive across all projects, I think they just get used to kind of delivering one after the other, which has worked well for us. So essentially, it kind of becomes design and build, or it kind of fills those gaps where I used to have problems earlier with designers where certain information was missing and it was identified later, and which essentially led to scope creeps, price increases, variations. And we were able to kind of identify those really early on to try and mitigate those problems that we generally see with like a more broken down designer, contractor, cost consultant.
Right. And I think that kind of also makes sense, because if you think about it, if you're working with a designer and you are going to do, well, a general QA, QC, or even an estimation and so on, you kind of are doing half the work anyway, right? Kind of going through and really analyzing the drawing. So if you kind of take it a step further and standardize it for yourself internally, I think that's pretty simple and quite smart, actually. And clearly you're having a lot of success with it.
We are. So I think one thing that's really helped us is that we've tried to invest into technology a lot. I think scaling a business such as luxury, residential, contracting, or design and build required us to kind of think out of the box. So I think standardizing our own schedules compared to kind of using the designer schedules was one step. And then building a technology platform on top of that and integrating that along with it kind of ensure that there's consistency in that process as well. Right. So I think keeping both of these aligned together has made life easier, but not saying that life is easy. It's still a tough business, tough industry, but we're doing the best we can.
Yeah, I keep telling clients that there's this myth of, 100% fully coordinated set of drawings. And I keep telling them it's a myth. It doesn't exist. I mean, it could, maybe, in theory, but the minute you reach site, there'll always be something that needs some further work. And the reason why this comes up is because they keep mentioning that if I do have a design team and a contractor that's working on and things are coordinated, how is it that suddenly 8 months into the project, we find that, oh, this shaft is not as big as we wanted it or something like that? To which I typically say that, yeah, that probably should have been picked up. Something like that should have been picked up. But this whole idea that clients probably have that, now that things are coordinated, it'll just be production, quite literally production right till the end, and I'll get my keys. That's where I think clients need a bit more education.
And I think another area is, I think I said a lot of people are turning into developers here as well. And I think a lot of my new clientele is also that they are building to sell, not only building for themselves.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily come with a lot of technical experience in this area. But one other myth or area of education that I would want to kind of emphasize on is this idea that once a design is done and once a BOQ is done, it is totally comprehensive.
Yeah, it is not.
Yeah, whether even working with the best of the best cost consultants who develop most detailed BOQs, there are always going to be gaps, which in theory shouldn't be, but there will always be. It's a lot of different materials. It's like 5,000, 7,000, 10,000 line items of work. So it's certain items can kind of go undetected, certain items. Yeah. And so this idea that my price is this and this is my design and this is what it should be and there should be nothing extra is something which I feel is a little too good to be true kind of scenario. So if a contractor is promising you that, I would say kind of put that as a red flag, and be aware that it should not be that you start off at 1 and you end up at 2,
right?
But do keep some buffers for some amount of unforeseens that do come across in any project.
Yeah. I'm almost tempted to ask in this day and age, because you seem to have figured out a pretty good system for, at least internally, kind of getting your projects out there. What are the sort of challenges that you're facing now, which may be relevant to someone listening in?
Challenges, I mean, there are numerous. I think that's...
Well, let's start with the top 3 then.
Top 3, I would say, is the challenges, I would say, just to clarify, would be, I guess, different challenges for different clientele. If there's an investor clientele, there are different challenges. If it's an end user clientele, there are different challenges. If it's a contractor and client segregated relationship, different challenges. So on an investor side, I would say the challenge is that, again, people that come to us because of also our experience in delivering on our luxury real estate portfolio as a developer, they come to us saying that we have delivered and sold luxury villas earlier, so they know that we have the skill set. But at the end of the day, as investors, they're looking for the best return on investment. So their return on capital is calculated by the amount of time the project takes. So there are very, very tightened kind of timelines put on the project, which sometimes I try and educate the client can be counterproductive, because luxury is not about speed. Not saying that there should be no timeline, but sometimes things do take time to get right. And that pressure of time, managing time versus managing quality of delivering super prime real estate assets, anywhere from 100 million dirhams plus, I feel that balancing that is quite a challenge that we're currently working with. And I think that's more of an education challenge, which people do realize towards the end of it, that
it was worth it.
It was worth spending time, or worth maybe even redesigning something, or worth changing a material which might have not looked good once it's installed, because it finally delivered the value. When they try to sell that asset, they realize that I feel that when anybody is buying a super prime asset, the demands are, or the expectation asset has to be flawless. So trying to save time by trying to do something faster, the potential loss in the value of the asset by not achieving perfection is significantly greater. And that is the reason I think managing time versus managing expectations in terms of quality and our own internal quality standards is something that we're kind of toying with right now. In terms of an end client, challenges I think further kind of can be branched out into different nationalities, have different expectations, So in terms of Europeans, I would say that they have great woodworks, joinery works that they're exposed to in that continent. And the expectation of joinery works is a standard which I've had to push my standards up as well in terms of what we're delivering. But I think we've kind of been inspired by what they've kind of pushed us and taught us and exposed us to. But definitely it was a period of challenge where we thought something was perfect. Our QA/QC approved it. I think even the consultants approved it, but the client's expectations were even greater. And I think we learned a little bit from that. In terms of the more Indian subcontinent, I'd say marble work, stoneworks. I think we do that really well in that subcontinent. And I think the expectations of that, not that it's a challenge, because I think that's really one of our strengths. Stoneworks is really something that we're really strong with. But I guess the detailing and the kind of, we do a lot of neoclassical work. So a lot of detailing that comes in the stonework sector is quite a time-taking and manual process, which becomes a little challenging.
Right.
But something that we're kind of really proud of, that we really do some great stoneworks and the projects that we do execute.
Okay. I'm almost tempted to ask, because it seems like you're really passionate about what you do across the entire, all verticals, so to speak. So I know this will be hard to answer. So if you don't want to, that's absolutely fine. But could you maybe tell us about a project in the recent past, maybe the last 4-5 years, which in your opinion really stood out? We don't really need a name or anything like that. I mean, you're free to, but anything that stood out to you and why?
Very easy for me, to be honest. From our real estate development portfolio, we sold one villa about 3 years ago. It's called the Imperial, new classical villa, something that we spent a lot of time designing. I personally was very, very involved in every element of that. Stood on site every other day to kind of ensure that was built. That was the first large development from our real estate development company. Prior to that, we've done some few offices, luxury offices though, that we sold, but that was the first large super prime development that we were bringing to the market. Yeah, I mean, I think that was something that we were aiming for perfection, and we achieved that. I think in terms of every little corner was executed perfectly, every little material, different materials coming together, those terminations were perfect. And not saying that project was a straight line, there was a lot of ups and downs during the course of it, but something that we said if we didn't like it, we broke it and we did it again to ensure that perfection. So in terms of what some of the projects that I'm proud of, that's something that I've delivered and very proud of that. It had great amount of interest from some of the biggest families in the world. And yeah, that was very, very kind of satisfying that people who are so exposed, who've seen the best in the world, and they were kind of vying for that property. So that was kind of very flattering in a certain sense. But yeah, that's something that we did 3 years ago. More recently, we're doing some amazing projects, which kind of I'm very, very proud of, and that we're building, I said, one of Barari's biggest villas right now, which is going to come to the market. It's private developer again, new developer, boutique developer, again, very passionate about it. We are only the contractors on that. And I think the client has put together a very, very good team. It's like, I think it's 3 or 4 different designers on the project. I mean, architectural designers, different interiors, different landscape is different, lighting is different.
Cool.
So a lot of coordination.
Yeah.
We're kind of coordinating at all ends, but I think it's quite a unique proposition. It's really set within a sanctuary, essentially, so the external context is so beautiful that, I mean, the overall experience of building this is something, it's coming out to be a really, really special project. So I think something that'll be in the news very soon.
Nice.
Other than that, I think we have our magnum opus project, which is currently going in Emirates Hills, which is a 52,000 square feet development as part of our real estate portfolio. Again, we spent almost a year designing it. I didn't anticipate it's going to take so long. And it's a coordinated effort between our firm and a French designer that we've collaborated with, and a French-Lebanese designer that we've collaborated with. So something that's, I think, quite special as well. We're documenting the whole story of how we're building it, and kind of for people in the future to kind of just understand the entire process of what it takes to build an asset like that. So
I have a strong feeling, right? Someone like yourself needs to pitch this to Netflix, right? And quite literally, I mean, while you have, $1 million listings and all that stuff, and Sirhant is awesome, sure, but I think people would want to know how these things get built, right? I think that would make for a good show.
Right. I think so too. Yeah.
So if anyone listening has an in, we have the content apparently. No, but that's so, I mean, I get excited listening to that, right? Because I can automatically tell the number of mock-ups and, just the passion that has gone into a project like that. You can't duplicate that. There's no shortcut to that, unfortunately. So I'm really glad that you're doing it. As we sort of wind down the episode, this is typically where we like to look forward. So for yourself, for LSI, for Teraciel Group as a whole, what are you guys working towards? What do you want to achieve? Are you looking to enter a new market? Are you looking to tighten up a workflow? What are you working towards?
I think all of the above. As a group, as
I said it, I was like, yeah, he probably is doing all of the above.
Yeah. As a group, obviously, the group's mission is to be a leader in terms of set the benchmarks in terms of our operational standards in every industry we operate in, whilst ensuring that we capitalize on opportunities that come our way. So we're always looking for new industries, newer markets to expand into, and not only expand into them, but also set new operational standards within the industries that we enter. So that's an ongoing ambition and ongoing search. In terms of individual businesses, I think in terms of the real estate business, we've been focusing largely on luxury villas for the last few years. We aim to enter into high-rise commercial developments in the recent future. So as Teraciel Properties, that's the new direction that we'll be taking the business in. Not kind of deviating away from the villas. We'll still continue to do the villas because I think we've kind of really understand how to build them well. But I feel that the natural progression of the business is going to be more towards high-rise as well. And in terms of Last Orjica Interiors LSI, we're always keen on kind of finding projects that align with our vision of building the best homes in the world. So clients that come in and want to do something great, we're always kind of eyeing for those projects. And I think a lot of new master communities, I think you mentioned Naya Island earlier, obviously Emirates Hills, Jumeirah Bay. So a lot of these new master communities that are coming up as well, people are buying some great land there. So I'm assuming the next few years is going to be very busy with that. And in terms of Teraciel Engineering and Contracting, which is our commercial building infrastructure contracting business in Africa, we have been blessed with kind of being part of a lot of the buildings of national prominence in the countries that we do operate in, and trying to bring in a little more Western project management systems, and combined with our Indian roots of a little more economical contracting services to that continent. So always looking for countries that require kind of first world project management standards and have a desire to create infrastructure inspired by the first world, and kind of bring that to those markets, bring that technology know-how to those markets to kind of be a partner of those countries in developing the commercial building infrastructure within those countries. So a lot on our plate.
Yeah.
Challenges wise, as I said, numerous for me to go there. But I would say the biggest challenge that we are having at this point of time is we've got more work than we've imagined. So the markets are doing well. The economies, all the countries that we're operating in are doing well. So we're growing the team and we're trying to deliver 120% or 120 HP out of so kind of everyone's kind of pushing really hard to deliver on the commitments that we've taken on.
That is the best summary of Dubai I've heard. Yeah. I mean, Dubai in a nutshell, right?
Exactly.
No, that is really exciting. It's really exciting times for you guys. We look forward to seeing things that you do. I think everyone listening in, without a doubt, it has been inspired in some way with something that you've said. So thank you so much for your transparency, I would say, and honesty to some extent. So I have to ask, just because, and now this is more of a selfish question, right? In terms of plots that are available in Dubai, right? This now seems to be the next big problem, wherein,
very true.
Cool, we have good designers, we have the talent, we have everything, but the plots are drying up.
Absolutely.
So what do you think? I mean, obviously there's, the sort of no-brainer thing that, we can just do a bit of reclamation and have a coastline now, which sort of just keeps expanding. Or conversely, we go down the other side and just build further and further and further till eventually we reach Abu Dhabi, basically. Yeah. So what's your kind of, I suppose if you had some kind of a vision ball, what do you think is going to happen with plot pricing, plot availability? Is it going to cool off at some point, or do you think it's going to just keep going the way it's going?
See, I think the golden rule of real estate is just one, right? Location, location, location. So if you're looking at prime locations, I don't think there's any cooling off because demand will always be there. There's only a handful of plots that are available.
Right.
And so prime locations, it's kind of becoming an impossibility. I mean, as that we've been looking to acquire plots for our building for a while, and you can see in negotiations itself, even if you offer what the asking is, they realize that was too easy. So let's increase it more. Let's increase it more. Let's increase it more. Let's increase it more. So I think the problem is that people are also, there is a lot of sellers that are potentially fishing just to see what they can get because there is just such a dearth of assets. Having said that, I mean, my knowledge would be limited to what my brokers tell me that things are moving towards Abu Dhabi, Dubai South is the way to go. Though for me, the kind of clientele and the kind of assets that I do build and that I have a specialty in, for me, I'm still looking for more prime real estate. Location is very important for me because we do super high end. So I can't build a ultra high end luxury office building too far out. So we're struggling with that place. And I think it's good to see that you're very cognizant of that part of the market too. And
it kind of, I think if you're kind of in that high end resi sector, you can't help but not be involved in that part, I think.
Residential villas, I don't think is that much of a difficulty though, because the master communities are quite a few and they're coming up as well. So whether it is Dubai Hills, which has turned out to be a very, very successful master community, Tilal Al Ghaf, which has come out there. Though I'm not sure if Tilal Al Ghaf is selling plots, but Dubai Hills did. I know there's a lot of communities coming around Maidan. Those master communities will offer villa plots. But for buildings, I feel that's the real challenging ones because obviously you have the legacy players here. You have the Emaar, the Miras, the Nakheel, the Dubai properties. They obviously have access to all the best lands. But if you're a boutique developer trying to enter the space, it's gathering real estate is quite the challenge.
Right. No, it is something which I think a bunch of the developer work that we're doing at the moment, that seems to be the biggest concern, where they're like, we can sort of, get a design together in a couple of months and we can, launch it and we can probably sell a bit off plan, etc. But, and there's this one developer who will remain unnamed, who just constantly over the last few months, their biggest struggle has just been acquisition of plots. Where they're like, for especially that sort of G+4 to G+20 sort of range.
Exactly.
It's like, I mean, when you hear them talk, I'm like, surely, I mean, when I look out the window, I see a lot of empty space. It can't be that bad. But they tell me it actually is that bad.
Yeah, it's exactly the sweet spot, G+4 to G+20 or even G+30. I think that spot, which is maybe anything from 50,000 to, let's say, 300,000 square foot GFA. I think that's something which is a challenge right now. But I think the government is making changes. They're making a lot of the land freehold, which was previously only GCC owned. So hopefully that problem does ease out. I think one thing that's great about this country is that the people leading it are far more forward looking than even 100%. The people, so they're able to identify issues before they become that big. So I think they're already working on solutions. So hopefully we're able to
100%.
gather.
I mean, as a person who's been born and raised here, the thought of owning something in Wasl, in Jumeirah,
was it impossible?
I was like, what? This is unheard of. Even 5 years back, if you told me this was going to happen, I would say absolutely not. But lo and behold, here we are. Ujjwal, I think we can chat forever, which is always a good sign of a good episode. We have a bit of a closing tradition on the podcast. It's just a bit of fun to sort of conclude the episode, wherein we ask a question. Well, a previous guest has asked a question to you, not knowing who is going to be on the show. And what we do is we have a little question bank and we kind of just randomly pick out a question. So sometimes these aren't even design related. So feel free to take your time and answer them. I'll pull up your question right now. So here we go. Ooh, funnily enough, it's kind of on point with what we just spoke about. So the question is, imagine if you were the mayor of Dubai for a day, what legacy or lasting impact would you aim to create? I'm assuming this could be in construction, could be in design, could be even in other ways. So imagine you were the mayor of Dubai for a day. What legacy or lasting impact would you aim to create? That's
a really tough one. The country, the leaders are doing so well. So
you're like, how can I outdo them?
That's a really tough one. To be honest, I don't even know what a mayor's responsibilities are. I'm very apolitical.
I feel like the only mayor I can think of is like the Monopoly man. Like,
I mean, Michael Bloomberg was for New York, but didn't end really well for him, I guess. I don't know. I think traffic is an ongoing problem. Maybe new system of traffic movement, doubling Sheikh Zayed Road, 2 levels. I don't know. Something that...
I actually went down a bit of a rabbit hole on this because I saw my man Elon Musk in Dubai. I was like, there must be something happening.
Right.
And then like 2 weeks later...
company.
Yeah, 2 weeks later, they announced the boring company doing the loop over here. And I was like, fantastic. And I went down this whole like rabbit hole of just general safety, HSE on how these things are put together. Turns out they're super safe. Not as unsafe as I would have thought. Obviously, I'm a bit claustrophobic generally. So for me, I probably just close my eyes and like go through the entire thing. But it is insane, the technology that they actually use. I would have never thought it was that far ahead.
Okay.
Which was really inspiring. So I think eventually we might have like a very London type situation wherein...
The tube, something like that.
Yeah, wherein it's just like multi-layered layers of the tube everywhere.
So as I said that, it's very hard to top what the leader's already doing. So I said they're far ahead.
Yeah. No, but that's a good answer. I think traffic is something all of us can relate to. So that's awesome. Ujjwal, well, thank you so much for, giving us your time. I understand that's probably the most costliest asset on the market. And the show is only possible because of people like yourself donating your time.
Thank you for that. I think it was a great conversation. Yeah.
And sharing your expertise. So yeah, thank you so much on behalf of the team.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. For the rest of you guys, we will catch you guys next week. Fellow aFormer, thank you so much for your time. If this episode added any value to you, please share it with anyone who may benefit. If you want to carry on the discussion, please get in touch with us over socials. We are at aForm Show on the gram and hello@aform.studio on email. That is at aForm Show on the gram and hello@aform.studio on email. Until next time, stay inspired.